All right, see the button. Well, thank you, Barbara, and thanks everyone for being here. It's great to see so many clear planners out there. That makes me feel great to see the participation. And yes, this is a very worthwhile organization, and Barbara is done more for the CPM Washington D.C. chapter than anybody else, and she's really been there, pushing this chapter and keeping it going through, pandemics and craziness and ups and downs of our crazy world. So thank you for keeping this venue going, and we're thrilled to support this in any way we can. If it's buying pretzels when we have normal times, or at my house presenting like this, we'll do it. And I think ClearPlan's behind CPM here, and we're really excited about the future, getting back together. And we do want to get back together. I'm sure you all do as well, but the virtual option, I'm sure, will stay here. So exciting topic tonight. We really learned a lot about Power BI and how to use it in a program management setting over the last few years. I think early on, and obviously we do a lot of work with Microsoft Project, and so we do a lot of work internally with Microsoft products, period. And so as Power BI came out and we began working with it, and Garrett worked on our Microsoft project, which we had a number of years ago, we started to get familiar with Power BI, and like a good defense contractor, we said we needed an R&D environment. So we have a program control environment that has a real data set, has all of the tools and our experts to exercise them. And really, we started messing with it and started trying to learn more about how, because in our world, there's COTS tools, and then there's these gaps in the middle, and these problems, and there's the the one-offs that seem like they're in every single implementation. And so, and obviously everybody's binky reports that you have to get. And so we find ourselves and ClearPlan here, nationwide, we got 175 people doing, project management, mostly in aerospace and defense, but we're, near and dear to this environment. We find ourselves trying to figure out how to solve those gaps and to bring unique solutions. And as we see these new tools coming online, start to think about how they can really make an impact to us. And so we have an R&D environment. We start working with it. We start, talking to our clients about it. We actually have our own.
I took my mic off.
Sorry. Everything's okay, I assume. But we have our own Janus accounting system at ClearPlan. We use Power BI because getting the reports out was getting, we're just like, on a program, dumping out all kinds of different, CSV files and building pivot tables and all that, and passing around sensitive information. Crazy process that needed some automation. So Power BI worked great for that. We started getting involved with some other contractors that maybe even didn't have the EV requirement, but wanted EV-like reporting. We started working with an Agile contractor doing, using Jira and Microsoft Project, and wanted to build a comprehensive dashboard to communicate with the Army about. And that was another step that we were learning. And then we started working with another middle-sized defense contractor who wanted to see their accounting, their resourcing, their costs, their schedule, their risk, all in one place. And we realized, Father, there's even some of the widgets that you call them, or the different items that display information in Power BI, weren't really customized and ready for all of the things in project management that we'd like to see, like a real Gantt chart, things like that. So we put some real time and energy into, I think, learning a lot, working with our clients. And you still need the standard cost tools, but there's always holes, there's always things, and there's always I think ways in which you can use data visualization to really understand and error correct and all really use your time for analysis over the data entry and things like that. And so there's been a lot of progress made. I'm happy to see our team here. We have Garrett Rodriguez, who's going to be driving and hands on the tool guy. Scott Fish is going to be narrating it and has led this effort. One of our managers here at ClearPlan. And we also have Lena Thompson, who's been working with this team as well, another manager, and also Ryan Beard, who's our technological genius at ClearPlan, who helps to stitch all these things together. Available on the panel, we have we're eager to go over this and do this live demo, and then take questions and talk to you all and get some feedback. It's an exciting topic. We're glad to be here. So Scott, why don't you take it away?
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. Real quick, Garrett's been showing the agenda here, but want to walk through exactly what we're going to talk about tonight, and then we'll get right into it. We're going to spend a lot of time, talking, looking at the tool, and this is a live demo, so what could go wrong, right? So we'll keep our fingers crossed, make sure all the technology is working. But if it does, you guys, you're in for quite a treat. If you're not familiar with Power BI, you'll get a little more familiar with it and some of its capabilities. That's really our objective tonight. Like Josh said, we're heavy into aerospace and defense with an earned value management requirement. And so we built our data set, our mock data set that you'll be seeing some of that tonight, using Microsoft Project Online, which is just an online version of Project Server. We integrated that data in with Cobra. We built out Cobra. It includes rates and resources and work packages, and we've got the whole thing built out to really mirror an ACAT1 type A&D program. And so you'll be seeing some of that tonight, but with this data is integrated, I would caveat everything by saying, the data you're seeing, don't try to analyze it. It's fake. So if you see errors, don't ask questions about the data. It's really just about the visuals and the possibility of pulling information together. So with that, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to real quickly go over what Power BI is. Just a real quick high level. I'm sure some folks have heard of it, but maybe have never seen it. So we'll talk about what it is exactly. We'll actually then jump over to the live demo. We're going to connect Power BI to Deltek Cobra. Our Deltek Cobra instance is sitting on a Microsoft Azure server, which is like a cloud SQL server, and that's how we've implemented Deltek Cobra. So we'll actually be reaching into that cloud instance tonight live. We're going to create a few visuals based on some of the data tables in Cobra that will jump right over and start creating Power BI visuals connecting to Microsoft Project Online. Again, this is our live Project Online environment sitting in the Microsoft Cloud. We'll create a few Microsoft Project visuals. We'll actually connect some of these together. We'll actually connect Cobra and Project Online together, so you can kind of see what happens when if the data has common elements, what's possible. When we're done with all that, we built out a sample, we'll call it report. We're going to jump over to a report that's a little more established, where we show the ClearPlan quadcopter example. We've built it out a little more. We've connected it to Jira, even as Josh mentioned. We have a cloud instance of Jira where we connected some of the Agile backlog data. So we'll step through just a real quick example, kind of what that looks like when it's a little more mature. And then we'll cut back over to a couple slides. We'll talk about publishing, what that means. And then the very last bullet for the first hour, we'll talk about, we've got this whole thing scripted out. It looks a lot like a desktop procedure, screenshots with call outs and, instructions. We're going to make that available to you guys. So if you want to try to replicate this somehow, if you have access to your Cobra SQL server or Oracle database, or you have access to a project server or Microsoft Project Online, you can replicate any of this following the steps we're going to provide you. So we'll talk about how to get a copy of that. And then we'll just lead us over to the second hour. I think, it's going to be more of a panel discussion and, some of the things we've learned along the way here. So, Josh will help narrate or walk us through that and, ask questions of the panel, and we'll take live questions from you guys if you have any. I would ask that you guys save the questions for after we're done, because we're going to talk a lot of, technical, and I'm trying to follow a script. So if you would, write your question down, save it. We can definitely jump back to anything, but we'll take questions at the end. Otherwise, I'm going to try to move through the script. Since Garrett is driving, we don't have a way to jump around a lot. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. Garrett, so if you click to the next slide here, real quick, what Power BI is. I give you the Microsoft definition, that really long paragraph, and then the next bullet says what it means in English. So we're going to jump to the ones that means in English. Which basically Power BI, it's a way to combine multiple sources into interactive visuals to provide necessary information to make business decisions. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of words. But basically, we're taking a lot of disparate information. In this case, we're going to take Cobra and Project Online. You can connect to Excel, you can connect to Microsoft Access, you can connect to virtually any data source, and the list is growing. Some of the built-in APIs that Microsoft has built for this tool that you can connect to Facebook or LinkedIn if you want to, if you're interested in some of the insights that those organizations provide. You can connect to any of those. They have built-in APIs connecting new data sources all the time. It really consists of 3 elements, we'll call it, starting with it's a Windows desktop application. That's what you're going to see Garrett opening and working in. It's basically like an Excel file, right? You open up Excel on your desktop and you start typing in data. So we're going to open up a Power BI file and we're going to start building visuals. We're going to start connecting to data and building visuals. There's also something called the online service, the Power BI service. So when you have a Microsoft Office 365 account and you want to publish data to the web or to your intranet, there's a Power BI service available that you can publish data up, share it on SharePoint or any other cloud Office 365 environment. So that's also part of Power BI. And then once you've published it to the Power BI service, the data is available through the Power BI mobile app. So if you have a smartphone, you can pull visuals down straight to your smartphone. Everything can be when you're building it. We'll show you a real quick example what it looks like on your phone after you've published to the server. So we'll actually show you a screenshot of what that looks like. But it's actually it's pretty neat. And if you're ever interested in earn value data on your phone, there you go. Now we have a way for you. All right, Garrett, let's go ahead and kick it over to the demo here. So what Garrett's going to do, he's got a Microsoft Power BI desktop application open, and the first thing we are going to do is connect this Power BI desktop application to Deltek Cobra. And so like I mentioned, our Deltek Cobra is sitting on an Azure SQL Server. So you can see him, he'll walk you through the mouse clicks. By the way, this scripting is what we're going to provide, so you don't have to try to remember the steps, and I'm glad we're recording. But as far as the click to get data, he's going to go to find SQL Server database. You can fill, there's all those different data sources you're seeing. He's actually using the filter function to get through them because there's so many different data sources you can connect to. All right, so he's connecting to SQL Server. It's prompting him for the server name. Your IT group will probably have to provide this to you. This will be your SQL Server name. So Garrett's going to punch in ours. This is, as you can see, AZN. This is a Azure SQL Server that we are connecting into, and then our database name is called ClearPlan, or Cobra ClearPlan Demo. And then real quick, before we go too far, there's 2 little radio buttons right there, import and direct query. And we might get into a little bit about that later, but import, you're actually, importing data into this data model. Direct query is, think of it as like a live connection. So if you have a lot of data, I mean, if you're talking enterprise level data, you're not going to want to make a direct query because it's going to take forever for the data to read and refresh. You're going to want to run import routines where the data is coming in, it's stable, it's already in table format. You're not, constantly pinging data back and forth. So just a real quick note on that. The difference between import and direct query. So we're gonna actually import this data from our Cobra SQL Server. Go ahead, Garrett. All right, it's prompting him for his credentials. Hopefully he has the appropriate ones. You will need appropriate credentials to reach into your SQL Server and see the tables. So again, if you get this far and you get credential errors, talk to your IT group, see if they can elevate your permissions. Okay. All right, he's connected. So what you're seeing on the left, at the very top, there's a folder that's exploded. That's the actual SQL Server that we connected to, and then down below is all the Deltek Cobra tables. There's a lot. Scroll through that list. These are the standard set of tables. When you install Deltek Cobra onto your server, you're going to get these tables. You can add tables and build tables if you're really into Deltek Cobra, and we're not going to cover that tonight. But these are the standard set of tables that comes with Deltek Cobra, and so we're actually going to connect to just a few of them just to kind of keep the demo simple. So we're going to connect to 2 tables in this case, one called the CAWP, and if those of you familiar with earned value vernacular, that's control account work package table. And by the way, when you clicked on it, you saw a little preview of what the table looks like. So these are previews evaluating. You can kind of see what the data looks like in that table. So you can see, you know, in this case, he's got a table called T phase. This is the time phase data. It's calendarized. You can see we got direct, dollars, we got fee, fringe, FTE. These are all the Cobra elements, cost elements, and cost classes, hours, overhead, G&A. So, you know, we're going to build our visual using the T phase table and the CAWP table, which contains all our control account work package information. So go ahead and load that, Garrett. So you can see the data loading. It is a pretty decent sized data sample. I think it's got a couple thousand rows, at least in the T phase table. You can see it's got about 6,000 rows. You can also see it's saying something called detecting relationships. You know, the key to visualizations and connecting all this data is making sure you have common elements between the data sets. In this case, because we're using the time phase data table, we do have a relationship between the two tables we're going to establish. Power BI tries to be smart and establish it on its own. It doesn't do a very good job sometimes. So we're going to help it. We're going to tell Power BI, you know, hey, when you're looking at these two tables, CAWP and T phase, where's the connection? How are these two tables related? You know, it's a relational database, so you know we're going to create the relationship. So in this case, we're going to drag over the CAWP ID. This is the system number that Deltek Cobra generates. You won't recognize it. You know, it's a number that the system uses to track the CAWP as a discrete ID, and we're going to connect it over to the T phase CAWP ID, which happens to be the exact same field name. If you guys have ever used Microsoft Access or created relationship between tables, you know, we can get into what they call the cardinality. In this case, both tables have the same work package ID replicated because there's multiple rows with the same work package ID. So this is what we call a many-to-many relationship. There's many of the same work packages in the CAWP, and there's many of the same work packages in the T phase. It's not a one-to-one, it's not many-to-one, it's many-to-many. So go ahead and hit OK. That's just a little nuance about understanding your data, but you will need to understand it to get the visuals to work appropriately. Okay. You can see it created a little arrow here for us, lets us know as our table's related. Okay, now we're going to jump back over to the visual builder here. So you can see, you know, as I'm looking at Power BI desktop, I got some, you know, buttons up top. We'll go through a couple of these, but mostly we're going to spend our time in the visualizations pane. So as you can see, kind of Garrett's, you know, dragging his mouse over there and kind of showing you where the visuals pane is. So I think the first thing we're going to do, we're going to build a visual based on that data we just imported off those two tables. So we're going to bring a stacked column chart. He's already got it selected. When you click on it, it kind of creates this blank, you know, there's no data in it, but here's kind of what it's going to look like. So we're going to create a stacked column chart. And let's see, what do we want to do? We want to, we're going to expand the T phase table. So you see the fields on the right. Those are our two tables that we connected to. So we're going to expand the T phase table, and we're going to drag something called the DF date over to the visual, or you can just click it, it'll add it to the axis. And basically what we're doing is we're adding dates now to the visual. This wouldn't be unlike building a pivot chart report. If you guys have ever built a pivot chart and you put the dates along the x-axis, that's effectively what we're doing here. Then we're going to drag something called the CE code. This is what Cobra calls the resource code. And so you can see up and it starts creating a little legend. We're going to put that as the legend. So we're going to segregate our data by what we call CE code. So we're going to actually see some data stacked by resource code. And you guys you may recognize like some of these abbreviations, and it's kind of hard to see, but you know, it says EEME, you know, like electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. So these are the resource codes that we use in our Cobra data. And then we're going to go ahead for the calculations. We're going to show you guys the FTEs. This is a calculated field in Cobra based on your calendar and your work hours available in the calendar month. And Cobra will go ahead and calculate the FTEs available in the month. So this is a calculated field in Cobra. And so what you're seeing really quick that Garrett just built right in front of your eyes is a time-phased FTE report by resource. So just by clicking on the one chart and the three elements, you can kind of see a yearly buildup of FTEs, you know, by resource. It looks pretty ugly, probably too big. see, Garrett, you want to try to just real quick drill down a little bit, maybe show them the next level in the, you know, we don't want to see it by year, maybe you want to see it by quarter. So he hit the little drill down button and you can kind of see it starting to drill down by quarter. And if you hit it again, it'll drill down by month and so on and so forth. So this is some of the power of Power BI that you're seeing. So now I can see, you know, for all, and this is all the year, so the data's not exactly right, but you're getting the idea. The FTE, full-time equivalent resource profile across the calendar. All right, too much data. And anybody who's ever worked in Deltek Cobra and pulled data out and just started pivoting it, you're bound to come across this issue. So what we did is we pulled out all the FTEs across all what we call the cost classes. So we're going to start filtering that. So Garrett, if you would add a slicer, and we're going to add the class slicer. And so this, again, just kind of like Microsoft Excel, we're going to build a way to slice the data down. So you can see our chart is built on actual, budget, earned, and forecast, and it's summing up the results of that. And so it obviously doesn't make sense. You don't need to sum up the actual budget, earned, and forecast to get an FTE profile. But this will build you a really quick way to filter on it. And so in this case, we want to filter on, say, budget. This would be our planned heads, you know, our baseline planned heads in Cobra. And if you would, Garrett, maybe drill back up to the year instead of showing the months. And one thing you noticed as he was doing this, as he's resizing it, this is kind of a neat feature, but he's resizing it, and it's got this really neat kind of snap to grid feature. So it just show him real quick, Garrett, when you're dragging resizing, when you get to the right spot in the grid, it kind of gives you a little red line, lets you know you're snapped to a certain point right up against the other visual, kind of makes it nice and easy to build. And you know, if ever try to align things, you know, building a pivot table and dragging things around, it makes it pretty easy. Okay, so real quick, you already see, you know, once you click through the classes, just so they can see how interactive it is. So as we click through actual or budget or forecast, you know, actual probably, you know, we've only got 1 year's worth of actuals in there, so those are FTEs anyway. You get the idea. We can now start filtering through our data. Okay, still too much data. This is a program level data. In fact, this is probably maybe even multiple programs. In this case, we're going to bring in some more slicers. So in this case, Garrett, open up the CAWP field, and we're going to bring in some control account information so that we can drill down through control accounts. So anybody who's ever used Cobra, CA1, CA2, CA3, that should sound a little bit familiar to you. In our case, CA1 represents our WBS. CA2 represents our OBS. And for the earned value experts out there, the intersection of the WBS and the OBS is, and you're all muted, but you know the answer, is the control account. Our CA3 happens to be our control account designator, so we're gonna bring in that as well. So here you got control account, you got WBS, you got CA2 OBS, you got CA3 control account, and just for kicks, why don't we go ahead and bring in the work package? Okay, so why don't you go ahead and get those aligned, make it a little bit easier. So a lot of this, and what we've learned about building, you know, visuals and, you know, how much data is too much on one page. This is going to be way too much for one report on one page, but we wanted to show you guys some of what's possible here. You're going to have to play around with your, you know, the space on the report, you know, to kind of optimize it for your audience. But he's aligning everything to kind of make it easier to work with, because we're going to continue to build on this. Okay, one last thing we're going to do here, since we got all this handy data in here, why don't you toggle on one of the WBS elements or control accounts or something, show them how the data filters. So if you just want to filter on one WBS element or OBS element, so here he picked an OBS element called dev test. You can see the visual that he built up top is now filtered down. The available control accounts that OBS is intersecting with has filtered down. The control accounts, the work packages that are assigned to those two control accounts have been filtered down. So as you select slicers, the other slicers recognize it and will only show you the available data that are contained within them. So, and if you click it again, if you click dev test again, it'll kind of reset the filter and it'll show you everything. And we're back. So you can select any one of those slicers to kind of drill down into the data. You can imagine, CAM name, IPT, program, whatever level of detail you want to slice the data down into is possible here. So, all right, so one last thing I think we're going to build for you guys. Garrett, why don't you head and bring in the matrix visual? And this is kind of like this is going to be a lot like a pivot table. So matrix is like a pivot table, has a columns and it has rows and data in the intersections. And so since we happen to have some of this data already here, let's go ahead and bring in the CA1 and CA2 as the rows in the columns respectively. So CA1, you can now see we got WBSs going down the rows. CA2, the OBS going across the columns. And why don't we go ahead and bring in, let's bring in direct as the value. And so the intersection of these two, wherever there's an intersection of the CA1 and the CA2, WBS, OBS, here's your direct dollars. So those of you familiar in the earned value world might recognize this as a RAM. We were actually able to generate this RAM right out of our data set. And anytime you make any budget changes or anything like that, you refresh this data, this updates. So there's some of the potential here just from our earned value project management discipline. So now a couple nuances we'll go through real quick. Garrett's going to rename some of these categories. So CA1 may make sense to us who live in Cobra, but it's really the WBS. So we can rename the Cobra default fields to what we want. So you can see him, he's renaming the rows, he's renaming the columns. You can format the data. I personally don't like seeing lots of decimals, even though it might be, technically accurate. I don't want to see decimals in my RAM, so I'm going to format the numbers to take away those decimals, just kind of round it up, make it a little cleaner looking. And so there you go. And it kind of starts looking a little funny when he's got some with lots of decimals. We can start cleaning some of this up. But now you get the idea. So we've now able to format the data within the visual however you want. All right, so we went about 25 minutes and we connected PowerBI to Cobra. We brought in only two of those available tables, and you guys saw how many there were. We built an FTE chart, a plan FTE chart, and we built a way to slice it, and we built a RAM, all on one page. It was pretty quick, took us about 25 minutes. Of course, we do this a lot, and we understand the data and we understand the tables. But again, it doesn't take a lot of effort, and you didn't see him write one piece of code. We'll get into that a little bit, but all he's doing to this point was dragging and dropping. So super simple. All right, Garrett. So now that we've built a couple Cobra visuals, let's go ahead and connect to Project Online. So using the same report, we've already got a data connection to Deltek Cobra. We're going to add a data connection to Microsoft Project Online. This will be the same process you would use for Microsoft Project Server. They make it really, they build in these what they call an OData API to reach into the data. I'm not going to get too much into the technical aspect of what OData is, but it's a really neat API that Microsoft has made available to reach directly into the server. So he's just typing in again, same process. Go get data. He's getting an OData feed. The OData feed to Project Online is pretty much the same across the board. If you want to connect to all the tables, you'll notice the only, it says clearplan.sharepoint.com. The only difference is you would use your URL to reach into your server. The rest is the same, site/pwA/-API project data. Go ahead and hit OK. Okay, so just like when we connected to Deltek Cobra, we're now connected to the back end of Microsoft Project. Look at all those tables. Some of those you probably look familiar. You probably use quite a few of them. Some of them you'll never touch, you'll never see, unless you use Project for timesheets. And if you do, I'll probably want to talk to you or talk you out of it. But you know, there's a lot of native tables. These are all the native tables, right? You know, available in Project Online. And there's nothing, if you're using Project Online and your project environment is sitting on a Microsoft server, there's nothing you can do about any of these tables. So these are the canned set of tables. And since there's so many of them, we're only going to pick a couple of them. So Garrett, let's pick the tasks table, which, as you might imagine, has all the task data in it. And then we're going to pick the task baseline table. So one has and again, the preview kind of shows you, if you know, even with the preview, you can scroll across the bottom and kind of see what you're looking at. You know, a lot of these fields you'll never use, but you'll start noticing a lot of dates, a lot of task durations, timestamps, those types of things. So, all right, we're looking at, you know, task baseline, start, finish. Oh, there's some task names, task baseline work. So I got some work in here. All right, we're gonna use these two tables and go ahead and load it to the model. All right. Again, pretty decent size sample data of an IMS. It's fully resource loaded. It's sitting on a Microsoft cloud. You can see it's not taking forever to reach into it. You can see it's trying to auto detect the relationships between those two tables, and it loaded about 1,000 rows. All right, so we loaded a new table. The first thing we always go do is, you know, it auto detected some relationships for us. Oh, by the way, those are other two tables that we loaded in before. You should recognize those by now. But we're going to look at the task and the task baseline tables since it auto generated this relationship. Well, I want to take a look to see what it did. So if you double click that little line there, it'll bring up a dialog box and it says edit relationship. Okay, so it looks like the task baseline, the task ID has connected to the task ID. You won't recognize that task ID. Again, that's a project server, project online, system generated task ID number. But it is is unique number for each one of those tasks. Think of it as like a Microsoft project unique ID, you know, something to that effect. In this case, the cardinality, we're gonna use 1-to-1. We explained many to many on the Cobra database, but in this case, it's 1-to-1. So this, you have a little checkbox to make it active or make it inactive. In this case, we're gonna keep it active. That was the default. So looks like it established the relationship appropriately. You can either cancel it or hit OK. Since we didn't change anything, go ahead and cancel. All right, so here's now what we got to do. We've got two tables from Cobra. We've got two tables from Microsoft Project Online, and we want to connect them. So this is now we're getting into some of the power of Power BI. You know, connecting disparate data sources. You know, up to this point, we've only connected to Cobra, which is the same data source. But now we got Cobra and Project Online, two separate data sources. So what is the common element between these? Well, we happen to have pretty tight cost schedule integration. And so we happen to know that our work packages are connected between the two data sets. We use the same nomenclature in our IMS as we do in Cobra. In fact, we use the IMS to move the data into Cobra, so we know it's exactly 1-to-1. So if you would, Garrett, we're gonna create a relationship between the work package in Cobra and the work package in Project Online. And so there's a field in the CAWP field. There's a field in the CAWP table called WP or work package. And in Project Online, we keep our work package in a text field. In this case, we call it text 9. We're gonna go ahead and create that relationship. You see a little preview. All right. Hit OK. And what you're gonna see is it's gonna create a relationship between these now 4 tables. All right, so now we've got Deltek Cobra connected to Microsoft Project Online. All right, so let's go back to adding to the visuals tab here, if you will, the report tab, and go ahead and shrink that RAM up a little bit. We're going to add one more visual in here and show you a couple things. Okay, we're going to add the table visual. Using our newly imported project data. So we're going to add a table visual. And I know it's getting a little crowded and we'd probably never advocate building something like this, but we wanted to show you guys, like I said, show you guys a couple things. So, all right, in the fields section, and so we got tasks and task baselines, you may recall. Go ahead, let's bring in the project unique ID. So this would be like the Microsoft Project Unique ID. We actually have a field that we maintain this in, and we call it the Proj UID, just so it's easier to read. Our project online environment is made up of sub-projects and master projects, and if anybody's ever worked in sub-projects and master projects and you open it up and you looked at the unique ID, it can be a little confusing sometimes. So we tried to simplify it and actually create a combination of the project and the unique ID to create this field. But this is the unique ID out of Microsoft Project. Go ahead and bring in the task name. And you can see there's a lot of fields that say task. If you want, you can filter in the search area and it'll narrow down your options of what you're looking at and highlight like the word task or something like that. I'm sure he's going to do it when we do the finish dates here. So why don't you go ahead and bring in the task finish date. So he's typing in the search, and as he's typing in, it's kind of a dynamic filter. It's only highlighting the things that have the word task in it. So we're looking for the task finish. There it is. I'm going to click that and add it in. And as you can see, every time he clicks it, it adds data into our little table. Let's go ahead and add the task finish variance. And so Microsoft Project calculates task finish variance as the delta between the task baseline finish and the forecast finish. We want to see what that data is. We'll get into why it looks funny here in a second, and we'll fix it. But all right, so we got the task finish variance. Why don't you go ahead for the heck of it and bring in the task baseline finish, just so now we can see the difference between the forecast and the baseline. And one thing you'll notice as he's doing this is when you bring in a date, it wants to segregate the year and the quarter and the month and the day. Sometimes that's handy. In this case, I really just want to see the date. So if you would, Garrett, switch that hierarchy to the date hierarchy. And as he changes that, it's working on it. That looks a little more reasonable. And in fact, I can't stand looking at the timestamp when I'm looking at these things. So could you remove the timestamp and maybe just show the short date or the long date? So he clicked up in the field, he clicked the field, and then he goes up to format. And it's really just that simple. Wait for it to update. Can you do it on both of them, the task finish and the baseline? There you go. So I clicked on the task finish, he goes up to format, changes the format. Okay, real quick, we're gonna talk about filters. If you've ever, let's say, copied and pasted data from Microsoft Project into Excel, and you brought in all the summaries or something like that, sometimes you don't want to see the summaries. Sometimes you just want to see the task level data. So in this case, we're going to bring in what we call a filter, and we're going to filter and make sure that we're not looking at any summaries, that we're just looking at the task data. So we're going to expand the filters page. We're going to look for summary. There's a field in Microsoft Project that says task is summary. You'd recognize that, and it would say summary task in Microsoft Project. It's a yes or no. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and we're going to filter off task is summary is no. So we don't, or is false. So we don't want task summaries. And what you noticed is he actually put a filter on the page. So basically every visual on this page will now exclude anything that had task is summary associated with it. So this is a way to like really filter out what is being shown on the entire page. We could have built a filter just in the visual, but we don't want this to show up anywhere on this page. So there's a little bit of a nuance there, but at any rate, we got rid of the task is summary, and you can reorder the names. You can reorder any of these columns anytime you want. So you already saw him doing that. He drags and drops like Proj UID, task name, finish date, baseline finish date. I would probably put baseline finish date ahead of finish date. So why don't you reorder that real quick, Garrett? and it's just a drag and drop, and it reorders your table. Okay, now anyone who saw that task finish variance, anyone who's ever worked a Microsoft project probably looks familiar when you're doing a calculation in Microsoft project and you subtract dates or something like that, and you get this number. I expected the and I didn't use the date diff formula or something like that, but what we're seeing here is hours, not days, and so we're going to convert this. We're going to convert this into days. We're going to actually add a calculated field. If anyone's used a calculated field in a pivot table, it works very similarly. So we're going to add a new field. It's going to be calculated, and it's going to convert this task finish variance from hours into days, which should make a little more sense to us. So why don't we go ahead and do this, Garrett? We're going to create. So he's going to jump over to the table view, and you can see the tables and the fields on the right. This is driven by the task table. So he's clicked on the task, the task table, and we're going to add a new column. And when he adds a new column, it automatically throws it at the very end of the data set, which is fine. We just got to make sure we understand that. He did add a column, and he threw it all the way at the end. Okay. So after we added the new column, we're going to rename this field, and it's going to be a calculated field. So this is, we're getting into the kind of the back end of Power BI and creating our own calculations. This is some of the power of Power BI, like, the native data didn't calculate it for me, but I know there's a calculation between the two data sets. So I'm going to go ahead and add a calculation. This is built into the tool. This is not customized. This is actually built into the back end, and it's called DAX, which it's kind of abbreviation for data transformation. So we're going to transform some of this data using what they call DAX language. We're going to name this column. By default, it just called it column. But why don't we name it, Garrett, finish variance, and then in parens maybe days, so that we can differentiate between the finish variance and the hours that it was showing us before. Okay, so all he had to do, so the first part is he types in, that's going to be the name of the column, and then he puts an equal sign, and then we're going to put the calculation. This is going to look a lot like a Microsoft Excel calculation. So we're going to pick from the task tables the task finish variance, and we're going to divide by 8, because that's really all we needed to do. Because it was showing it in hours, we're going to convert it to days. And since our project file is set up for 8 hours per day, we'll go ahead and click that. It's doing all the calculations. And when there's data, and when it's done, you'll see data pop into that last column. So you can see it change the name. Make sure you scrolled all the way over here. It's probably still working on something. Yep. Give it a second here. All right, so now you can see some numbers pop in there. 0 for 0 variance, 2, -6 is actually positive variance in this case, so you're ahead of schedule, but we won't get into why project does that. We're gonna return to the reports page, and we're gonna add this and replace that other one, because that other one doesn't make sense to me. So remove that task finish variance field you got and replace it with the one we just built. So we built it. The report refreshed. It should now be an available field to select for our table. Okay, now you see it. Now the sum at the bottom doesn't make sense, and we can turn that on and off. I'm summing up the finish variance in the days, and it shows me that 4,500 number. It doesn't mean anything in this case. You guys are going to have to use your discretion as you're building these into what you actually want to sum. In this case, we can remove the total because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, so now, if you would, since we're done, I think, building up what we wanted to build today, we're going to show you a little bit about how it works, but collapse maybe the fields in the visuals pane so we can see more of the report. and then start maybe filtering on some control accounts. And so what's going to happen? We're still on the budget. We can flip this over to forecast if we want, but we're on the budget. Go ahead and pick a WBS here. Yeah, that's a good one. And what it did is it filtered down again, that CA1 is our WBS field. It filtered down the CA2. So now we know which OBS is aligned to it. We know which control accounts assigned to it. We see there's 5 work packages assigned to this WBS element. We see the RAM, and then we see a picture of the schedule activities that are assigned to this work package. Why don't you click one of those work packages real quick, Garrett? And we're going to drill down into the activities in the schedule a little more. So, here's a case where you don't have to open up the schedule to see which activities, are assigned to that work package. And if I was a CAM, and I have been, and someone asked me to do a variance analysis, and I had a schedule variance and a work package, I would jump over to the schedule and say, okay, which of these tasks in my schedule could be driving my schedule variance? Was I planned to do more or finish and I haven't? This would be a real quick way. Scroll to the right a little bit on those tasks. This would be a real quick way to look to see at the task baseline and compare it to the task finish date. And you can see I have 26 days of variance in these tasks, probably causing a variance this month. So it's just a real quick way to, I've connected Cobra. I had a variance. I drilled through the data to figure out which activities were assigned to this work package, and I did it all in one spot. And now I've got this built out for everyone in my organization. I don't have to distribute, custom pivot tables anymore. I could add the CAM name or the IPT name, and I can make that level of visual if I want. So you guys can start, maybe just start comprehending some of the possibilities here. All right. Real quick, we're going to touch on, why don't you reset all the filters, show all the data again, and just one last little thing. And as we were building this demo, it really bothered me that all that pink in there. And so I'm sure you guys have, folks in your organization that are really picky about what colors show up on the legend. Red is bad. We don't want any red, and that pink is terrible. So real quick, maybe just show them a couple of the built-in, formatting options. So we're gonna format this using, a different style. And it's got a bunch of pre-built styles. You can actually customize each one of these categories if you want it, and you can go really nuts. Like I always want my Agile software engineer to be purple. You could assign it that if you want at that level. But here's are some pre-built themes. And they've got a bunch, so you could probably pick one that makes sense for you. Some of them are horrible. If he picks the one he's on, anyway, you can play around with that, see what kind of theme works for you, and you can create your own theme. There's galleries, more themes out there. This is actually what he's showing right here is how Microsoft itself would probably build the Power BI report. They love that dark theme. It really kind of drives me nuts, but this would be something they would actually show up in the Microsoft office up in Redmond. Okay, so just to recap real quick, we're right at the top of the hour. I got two more things to talk about really quick, but what you see, just to recap, is we've connected Power BI, the desktop application, to our Azure instance of Cobra. We've connected it to Microsoft Project Online. We've connected those two data sources together in this model and built some visuals, interactive visuals that we can drill down and drill through, to kind of get the data we want. So that kind of concludes the live demo portion of it. Looks like we made it. Garrett, if you cut back over to the PDF file real quick, I want to talk about two other things. One is the publishing. So I think we talked about early on Power BI service. So when you want to publish something, maybe scroll a couple slides here, or a slide, Garrett. Yeah, publishing. Okay, so what we just built was a report, and it consists obviously of visuals created using the desktop application. Let's say you want to create a bunch of different reports for a bunch of different customers, and you really like, I want to take that visual and I want to put it on a dashboard. I'm going to start creating a executive level dashboard. And they don't need to see the RAM. They don't need to see the FTEs, but maybe they need to see, total cost variance by program or something like that. So you can actually pick visuals off the reports you build and what we call pin them, and you pin them to a dashboard. And you can collect visuals from multiple reports and build basically a single dashboard from all those pages and all those reports. And then when you're ready to publish it to using the Power BI service, not unlike any other kind of system generated, if you have roles and groups and permissions, you can control who sees what. We've had customers where we built reports and then we built what we'll call a sanitized version of the report for their customer. They don't need to see our dirty laundry. They need to get a gist and maybe get a program status report, but they don't need to have access to the details. Because I think what we learned is if they did have access to the details, they start calling the task owners instead of the leadership, the contractor leadership. So it created some bad behavior there. So Garrett, one thing we'll talk about later on is know who your audience is, know who you're building for. But you can control who sees what, create different roles and groups, who sees what report, who sees what dashboard. Once you do publish it, if you decide you want to put it on your company SharePoint page or somewhere else, it's really simple to do. And that I just wanted to really quick, we were going to show you publishing, just kind of really talk about it. So if you have more questions about that, let me know. But and then lastly, kick the last slide here, the next slide here, Garrett. We're going to make this entire script that we just walked through was scripted out pretty good. Garrett and I built this out together. It's a bunch of screenshots with instructions and call outs and some information. In fact, Garrett, if you have it open, you can show them kind of what it looks like. Maybe share that script with them. But in terms of how to get a script, and we'll repeat this, just send an email to info@clearplanconsulting.com and then type in ClearPlan script. We'll reply back with it attached. So just go ahead and show them what it looks like. It's about 20 pages, a lot of screenshots, kind of shows you all the orders we were doing everything in. Garrett, do you have it?
No, it's frozen up.
Okay, no worries. It looks a lot like a desktop procedure, but you'll get the gist. So we'll clean it up and we'll get that to you within a day. Just send an email to info@clearplanconsulting.com. It looks like he's opening it back up. And that's really it. We want to make this available to you guys. We're happy to answer any questions. Go ahead and scroll through this. Here's the script. We're going to clean it up a little bit, make sure it's tightened up for you guys, but you can see all the screenshots. And as he was driving, I was kind of walking through this. So it's got all the steps that we took. The table names are the same, and so I think it could be really helpful if you want to start playing around with it. Okay, that pretty much concludes the live demo portion and what we wanted to show you guys. I think that we'll probably kick it over to what the panel discussion, answer any questions you guys have, talk a little bit about our experience. Actually, before we do that, Garrett, one last thing that I promised at the beginning is we have built out a ClearPlan. We've matured a better demo model, right? We just built this real time in front of you guys, but we spent some time on our own Power BI using our own data set. So let's just kind of maybe show them some of what's possible if they spend a little time on it. So what you're looking at is, again, basically the same data set. It's our quadcopter data set. You're looking at some earned value data across the top. Unlike some other third-party tools, we like to highlight where the variances trip thresholds. So you can see we can conditionally format some of the data. It's not really hard. So we condition, all right, if it trips a current or a current schedule or a cost variance, highlight it in orange. That will trigger the CAM to go in and do some analysis. Right now, you're seeing it in dollars. He could click that right over into hours. There's a little clock right there. I don't want to see it in dollars. I want to see it in hours, because I'm an engineer and I plan in hours. I don't look at dollars. So now you see down below all my work package data in hours. Then it turned into a dollar sign. I can toggle that back and forth. You can see it has a little button that says has variance, true or false. So if you want to show everything, just unclick the true. It'll show everything. So here's my entire program. Let's see, what other visuals should we show them here, Garrett? Hey, how about we show them a drill through to one of the WBS elements. So we've got this, this is our Cobra data. we're going to what we call a drill through to the work package level data. And so Garrett, appropriately picked one, our WBS element 114 is a Agile software leg. And so, here, what you're looking at when you hit drill through was, showing the schedule data right out of Project Online. Again, the same data source we just connected to, which control account, which work package it belongs to. And then below that, at the very bottom of this pane, you're actually seeing the JIRA data. So we got, in this work package, we have stories planned in JIRA with story points and their status and a link to the issue. If anyone's worked in JIRA, you know what I'm talking about. But you can see the work package, the issue type, the key. That's a key that JIRA creates, the summary story activity, the story points. We could get really creative and actually create a work package % complete based on story points, and we've done that before. So here we got a case where we got Cobra connected to Project Online, connected to JIRA. So you really want to get down into the weeds, with the JIRA level detail. So just a real quick, example of some of what's possible when you start bringing all this data together. So, all right, I appreciate that, Garrett. So yeah, Josh, I think that that pretty much concludes our live demo portion. If we want to kick off maybe the panel discussion or take questions, however you guys want to work.
Great. No, thanks. And I hope everybody could tell, how fast this can be done. And this is one of those, one of the challenges is this isn't just a piece of software you buy off the internet and it drops on your computer and you just, you run. You have to configure it and you have to manage that configuration. You do buy this Power BI software, but it's the regular interactions with it, understanding the data tables. That's what makes us better at doing this than someone just wandering through the data tables of Cobra and everything else. If you start to look at different large scale accounting systems like SAP, other things like that, there's just our world is a bunch of databases that it'd be nice to be able to tap them and be able to look at them all in one place. And this is a pretty easy way to do it. It doesn't necessarily replace the things that you're doing other than like crazy Excel reports and all the things that we all have done for years that to validate data, to show what different reporting and things like that. But this is a quick way, and once you have it, boom, and it's a URL. You hand someone a URL, or you go on, and you said you were going to show them, but you didn't, Scott. Literally you have a Power BI an app on your phone, and I can see ClearPlan Power BI data right on my phone at any moment, right? And you can choose to then switch it over to a NASA demo we did, and I can see that right there, boom, boom, boom. It's just amazing that this is like I said, it's not a replacement. It can deliver you procedurals, things like that, but man, the analysis is pretty cool. There you go. Right.
There it is. Yep.
Make it talk to me on this thing, right? And look at that. So pretty neat. I think the realm of the possible done. We've had to actually build, like I mentioned earlier, some schedule specific, widgets and things like that to show things, but it's really exciting way to pull information together and just try to make ourselves more efficient and, figure out not have to have so much manual work on a regular basis. So how do you want to do we have time, Barbara? Go ahead.
Well, I think two things. Amazing. Wow. Virtual round of applause. That was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I was getting my email out and I never do that. I totally want that script, Scott. I mean, I have Power BI because it actually comes with whatever that they give me at NASA. You have to get a license to get it so you can publish it, but even that, I guess we have 6:08, and I guess we could just spend maybe up to maybe 4 minutes, or if people have a lot of questions, I don't know. But I guess I'll ask the first question, then we'll jump over to your panel. Secondly, I just wanted to alert you guys that when we have these meetings, I do box them the 5 to 7 to be polite. At 7, I will formally close the meeting, but people do stay on. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of a courtesy. People don't want to jump off. Oh, they haven't finished. They're going to say one more word. No, we'll like give people from a courtesy perspective permission to leave at 7. But I think we go to 7:15 or whatever it's perfectly fine. Anyway, listen. Did you guys look at Tableau or the other competitors? And how come you're so in love with Power BI?
Is that our first question?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Now we've looked at Tableau, and it's probably the dominant tool in the market. They've been around longer. If you know the history of Power BI, it actually kind of started on the back end of Microsoft of Excel. They had Power Pivot and Power Maps. If you kind of going to remember that, it was built on Silverlight, which I think they retired. So I've kind of been playing around with this for a while, but no, we've looked at Tableau. Absolutely, it's fine. It's less intuitive, but it's more robust. We'll call it. It's a little more mature. They have been around longer. They've invested more. I got to say, and one of the things we wanted to talk about today was, the user base or the developer community for Power BI is just now getting started. And so but it's pretty robust. I think Garrett would agree. I mean, when you go to look for help online, and they're constantly rolling out new features, they're really trying to play catch up to Tableau, and I think that's the benchmark. Yeah, we did look at it. We kind of liked Power BI, especially as we're seeing a migration towards Office 365. It integrates so nicely with Office 365. So we're seeing a lot of GovCloud Office 365 implementations. It plays right into that. So where we see Project Online, Office 365, Power BI, and it all plays so nicely. SharePoint Online, it all plays so really nicely together. So that's kind of why we opted to build it out in this. But we played around with Tableau. You can build build the same things. It's just a little.
Tableau won't actually connect to Project Online out of the box.
Oh, really?
Say that again, Garrett.
Tableau won't connect to Project Online natively.
Okay, so yeah, this is a case where Microsoft's controlling their APIs. You want to connect to Project Online, you use our API. We're not going to give it to Tableau. That's just some of that going on. But you can get the data in. We know that. But it doesn't have that native API OData connection.
Tableau is a little pricey, and
Yes.
And the second thing I wanted to say is that I've actually tried to convince my customers to get this tool, either tool actually, and I find a lot of senior managers don't sort of get it. And like this is such a case of, look at this beautiful chart. You gotta, you have to show them to make them believers. But I also found myself saying that it was like Excel on steroids. I mean, this does, could you paint something like this in Excel, 12 hours later, and it isn't dynamic, that kind of thing. I mean, it looks so obvious. It looks like it should be such an easy sell, but maybe showing it to them on your own there, Josh. Maybe that's the money. I don't know.
They need a demo.
Yeah, no, we've demoed for NASA contractors. We've demoed for the Army. Army's starting to invest a little bit of money into this. We talked to a couple of the PEOs that are, real interested in building out their own capability. And what we found is, they brought in a scheduler and just said, hey, go learn this. So, he called us. He's like, I've learned a lot on my own, but, I'm kind of limited just because, I do it in my spare time, and this isn't really my field. So we tried to help them build it out a little bit, kind of show them what's possible. That was interesting that yes, you could do this in Excel, I guess, if you really want to get into conditional formatting, macros, that sort of thing. Excel has a capability, it's the biggest integration tool in the world, right? Everyone dumps data in Excel to try to normalize it. And there's no amount of dashboarding that's going to replace some of that, especially the ad hoc analysis that needs to be done. We recognize that, but for things that are repetitive, that you would like to control, think about some of the data that you do in Excel. I got two analysts doing it two different ways. I'm not really sure which way they're doing it, and they have two different answers. You can kind of control the calculations, the metrics, how be a little more consistent. You can drive discipline through the organization. Like if I have, nothing would drive a PM more insane than, all right, let me see who has, variances, and I got a CAM that says blank because they didn't put the CAM name in the schedule or something, like that. So it kind of like forces discipline down the organization to, really maintain your data set. So there's some benefits outside of just the fact that it's, pretty and, you could do a lot of it in Excel, but, and just the ability to tap into so many data sources. And one of that risk matrix that you were looking at before that Garrett had up there, we built, not only, did we combine Cobra and Project Online and Jira, we connected to the risk register. So now we got cost, schedule, risk all on one page. So yeah, I guess theoretically you could do this. What ends up happening is you end up dropping all this into PowerPoint every week or every month. You have a, PMR. That's the typical cadence. But yeah, we've got a lot of culture and barriers to overcome. Some, at first it was, resistance to the cloud. Especially in the government contractor world, resistance to the cloud. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that breakthrough. But now, to your point, it's going to be awareness, education. What is it? What can it do? Why is it different in Excel? Why am I spending money on this? That's a big part of the implementation, is just educating. What is it? What is it exactly? Why do I need this?
Before we segue to your panel, maybe I'll just pause here for, I don't know, I'm not very good at being quiet, but for just 5 seconds and see if there's other questions in the gallery here. Okay.
I see a thread going.
There was a comment.
Okay, what?
There was just a comment saying Power BI developers are difficult to find right now. And there may be more Tableau because they had that head start, but Tableau is going to be, it's got its own proprietary language you've got to learn, right? And Power BI does have a vibrant community, a lot of dev support, and it is built on reporting services, which is native to, right? Scott already pointed out, Excel, and some of the programs you've already used. And if you have anyone in your organization who is like the macro guy or the Excel formula guy, they'll probably have fun learning Power BI.
They'll pick it. We recognize people who have those types of skills make really good developers for this tool, especially playing around with it, learning it. But there's professional developers out there. We've interfaced with them. We've built our own, because Josh mentioned we built our own. We couldn't find a really good Gantt. Think about that. I want to build a milestone, like a summary level schedule. I always have to go to a third-party tool like Milestones Professional or some other, or one pager to build a summary schedule. So we built a visual to do that. So all you have to do is code some fields in Project, and it refreshes automatically. Not only you don't have to do any updating in a Milestones Professional or one pager, building anything, and it updates. And you can customize it. So we found that visual was lacking in the market for our industry. We built it. Now it took that does take some development, some coding skills. And you're right, it's hard to find that level of skill set.
Well,
Hey, Scott, this is Eric. I have a question.
Okay.
Could you use this data to build the BCR tool that we used to use back on AAS? And would this be able to do the same?
Okay. So what Eric is referring to is we built a tool. So BCRs, we were on a program where we were doing on average 50 BCRs a month. A lot of it was because we're doing incremental rolling waves by IPT, so it wasn't driven by, anything crazy, where the program wasn't volatile, it was just large, and we did incremental rolling waves. And so we built an Excel tool to take the time phased work package data out of Microsoft Project and build what we call a template. And a CAM would go in there, they'd select their control account. It would show by work package what's tasked in the schedule. It would show the resources and then time phased, and then it would do a little before and after. It would take a snapshot, and then they would work in the after part, right? I'm going to convert this work planning package to a work package, and so they type in the new work package name or number, and it would highlight it, conditional format, so I know what changed. So it was a real quick kind of what if and a was is BCR tool we built, and it priced it for them, because there's nothing more maddening than doing a BCR, changing the hours, running it through the cost system, seeing that I'm technically asking for 23 cents of MR, and then the cost guys come back and say, go remove that fraction of an hour on this, so we don't have an MR impact. This would actually price it for them so they could see the impact if they're moving hours over years or changing resources without having an MR impact. So we built a tool like that. So to answer your question, Eric, that would be really tough because of all the calendarized, I think, back-end calculations. I could see some of it, but that tool is better served in Excel because you worked in Excel, right? You built the BCR and you made your changes in Excel and it highlighted your changes. You can't really type into here, right? It's one way. So you could build and export the template, but it would basically end up making its way into Excel again anyway.
I didn't know if it would run in the back end, kind of like how Access did, and then interface with Excel and kind of do all the front end stuff, with running this in the back.
Yeah,
I saw the table structure and how it connected and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the difference is you don't write data back to the tables. It's a one way. It's just pulling data out. All right, so it's a one way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. We have a question here that says, can we see a demo of the Gantt visual?
Garrett, do you have that open?
I don't. I'm looking forward to see if I have one I can show.
I think we'll make that our last question. We do have 6:20, and then we can jump to your panel, Josh.
So,
Or Lena.
We have one. We'll dig one up. Garrett, yeah, if you just gotta maybe even just grab a screen grab of it if it's sensitive or something.
so Barbara, this is Kathy. I wanted to say that one of the things that the FAA has done, they use Tableau, but they've done this same type of thing from a portfolio level to try to, allow people to visualize the data and things like that. And it's been very helpful and kind of enlightening to a lot of people when they actually see the data in a different format. And it gets a lot of conversations started and everything. So I just think it's a good tool, and it has myriads of applications at all sorts of different levels. And so I'm really happy to see that, it's being used at a project level, and that it's because I just think it's kind of the trend that's going forward. And I think that we need to keep using it and pushing it and making people kind of see, this is how we want to look at data nowadays, not in these old reports or something. And so this is kind of where we need to be going.
I agree with you 150%, Kathy. As always, a brilliant comment. Yes. This is where the world is going. And I mean, just to belabor the point, I mean, for me to, try to campaign and say why I need one of these BI business intelligence tools. And they're like, well, you have Excel, that's enough. You're like, oh my goodness. I mean, like you were saying earlier, when Scott, you were demonstrating where, not intuitively, but through some AI algorithm, the tool was suggesting how the data links to each other. I mean, sometimes I have some experience with the other tool I was mentioning, it actually, like, you find things that you didn't see before, like you didn't even think to look for. You're like, oh, look at that connection. I mean, you're actually learning. Anyway, all right, we've exhausted that. So let's move on now to our panel.
Okay, so let's see. We have Scott, Garrett, and Lane is available, I think, and potentially Ryan. But we could probably field questions. If there's no other questions, I got some, some topics we can bring up and start talking about. Okay. Well, the first one, I think, is pretty generic, but and Scott, you could probably help here. But why do we use data visualization at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've already heard a couple of comments, and this is kind of the way we're moving. Josh, we've been looking at this for 5 years. We kind of got out in front of this, said, hey, we'll look at this really new tool. It's kind of immature at the time, but we kind of saw the application. We saw, the possibilities of the cloud-based, kind of the organizations moving to trusting and moving to the cloud, and with the Microsoft Gov Cloud opening it up, and then the Amazon Web Services opening up to government compliance, kind of help pave the way for something like this. But in terms of why to use it, I mean, we've already talked about some of the benefits over just Excel. The insights into the data that you wouldn't normally get, is a really good reason. The confirmation, we build reports, we just built a Cobra and Project Online report. We could easily do things as simple as, comparing data. We were doing data comparisons. We want to make sure the data is acting and behaving like we thought it should. And we can do this in a repetitive way. This is data validation is something we should be doing routinely in our industry. This tool will help you just kind of highlight where the errors are. And so I don't have to do a bunch of lookups between, Excel and, dumping out data out of Cobra, out of Project. That I have work packages match, period performances match, all the things that, you got to check for compliance. I can build some visuals to help, facilitate that. And then just really look at the exceptions. So it kind of speeds up that process. Again, we talked about, it highlights new insights you wouldn't have looked to see elsewhere with some of the visuals. It's automated. If you can refresh it on demand, you can schedule refreshes. So if it's large data sets, and you talked about enterprise level reporting. I want my enterprise level data to be dumped overnight once a night. So that when I come in the morning, I've already pulled all the data from my systems and my reports are ready to look at for the next day. If it's a large amount of data, that's, you'd probably tend to lean towards that method. You could schedule it multiple times a day. If you make that, if your data sets are that dynamic, so anything that can be automated, routined. I'd say another reason to use it is it was super easy. What you saw us build didn't take really any coding. Now we did build one, column where we did a calculation, but I wouldn't call that coding. It's just like doing a calculation in Excel. That's not really coding. So it's really easy. What they call low code. It's a lot of drag and drop. So anyone with some technical chops can pick it up. I would say really, really quick. We already talked. We found a visual was lacking in the market, so we built it. So it's customizable as well. So some pretty powerful COTS abilities. Right out of the box, and then you can customize it if you need to. And I talked about it. It can help drive consistency in terms of data quality across the organization. Making sure your schedulers are applying all the appropriate metadata across all their schedules. That sort of thing. Looking for holes, that sort of thing. And then one thing Garrett was really good about doing is, when there are holes, let's say I show this chart and it shows me, variances by program, and one of my programs says blank because someone didn't code something. Make that available to the data owner only, so that they can go in and check to see where they have holes in their metadata or meta content. Garrett kind of coined that metrics for the metrics. All right, I got this metric that shows me variance, and then I have another metric that shows me the data quality underneath those metrics. So that I can help manage some consistency across the organization. And then lastly, I would just say, the user base is expanding rapidly. The developer community, I would say it's still pretty hard to find a really competent Power BI implementation team or a group, or building custom visuals. It is still pretty new comparatively to Tableau, but I think it's catching up rapidly. So in terms of just Power BI, I'd say those are some of the benefits of why you'd use data visualization.
All right, thanks, Scott. Jack McKillop just had a question. He said, and it's in the chat, can Power BI be used in a standalone environment? For example, one program running on Microsoft Project Pro, not connected to a server. I get the value connections, but can it also be used with static data for a month-to-month data dump?
So yeah, good question, Jack. I guess yes, it can be used in a standalone environment. In fact, it's a standalone desktop client application. So if you just want to reach in, you have an Excel file like that represents your scheduled data, and you keep it in the same folder every month. You could start building up visuals that reach into that same folder every month. So you could kind of build a little mini standalone architecture. It will not connect to project desktop, the desktop client version of Microsoft Project directly. I think you're either going to have to either import an XML, which is kind of a pain, or you're going to dump it off to a CSV or an Excel format and then bring it into your data. So, but it's really easy. You know, if you're used to exporting data out of project, putting it in Excel, drop it in the same folder and hit refresh.
Right.
It effectively worked the same way. So yeah, you absolutely, and I do it all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you found, Scott, I think it was a good question, Jack, thanks, but that there were times where our customer wanted to have the live data available all the time and use it in meetings live and things like that, but we would publish to a customer shared environment only once a month or whatever the frequency was that, you know, was required, so you could manage, you know, what information was being shared.
Sure. Sometimes in some environments, people want to limit access to their data. They'll give you a flat file, but they don't want you to go into the live set, you know, or something active. So if you can get a dump sometimes, it just might be a part of the case. You know, hey, just give me a flat file. Let me show what I can do with it. And then if I have access to live data, look how much you can morph and how valuable it really is. I don't know, just a starting point.
I like it, right? Because all of us have to do that with this tool. Go ahead, Scott.
And I was going to say that segues into, you know, kind of one of an implement, you know, when you're implementing something like this and you're looking at lots of different data sources. Let's say I'm looking at Cobra and project. You know, I didn't show you guys, but you know, you didn't know if when my Cobra data was it was live out of the database. When was it last statused? What condition is it? And I'm in the middle of month-end BCR process. You know, is my schedule completely statused? This is something we learned at Microsoft, right? I can't remember how many data centers we were helping manage, Garrett. It was somewhere well over north of 100. You know, we're managing 100 data center projects, all separate standalone projects published in Project Online. And then like once a month, they would pull this data, you know, like how many tasks should have finished, how many should have started, you know, just, you know, some data quality. What they didn't check was the status date of the project to make sure that the scheduler actually even statused the project, right? They just kind of reported, you know, the condition of the project as it was sitting in the database. So something to be aware of is, you know, I would, and I know Josh mentioned, we actually run this on our own financials internally to ClearPlan because it's so easy and it's so easy to get to the data. And one of the nice things about it is we can see when the data was last updated. When was this data last refreshed? When did we pull the data? You know, when is it current as of? And that's something you'll want to consider when you're looking at the data source. So, all right, my Cobra data is statused as of May month end, but my IMS still says April month end. Probably not a good time to look at a comparison. You know, I got to wait for the data to catch up, but you know, definitely some considerations when you're building some of these things out.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
That's implementation considerations. What about lessons learned, Scott, after doing some of these?
And I'm sure Garrett has a bunch too. But we talked about the big one is communication. It's so new. You know, communicating to the teams what it is, what their role is, you know, if they're a consumer of the data or they are a data source owner, you know, the constant communication through the implementation process. What we found is there's usually one guy in the organization who's championing this and, you know, is trying to arm wrestle everyone into doing it. We also learned a lot about, you know, data quality and, you know, obviously garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't maintain your JIRA data, and you know, it sounds great in theory. You know, I manage all my Agile software development in JIRA, but I never status it. You know, so I got a bunch of stories sitting in the past. You know, I got a bunch of stories without weight. I got stories without owners. I got stories without, you know, resources. You know, as time passes, I don't update it. You know, I got it sitting in the same sprint that, you know, I never closed. You know, so they're never actually even managed the data. So it kind of forced a little bit of their hand in terms of you have to manage this data if you want it to mean something. In this case, we actually got them to improve the quality of that database, and they spent a little more time managing this, managing the JIRA data. But you know, lesson learned is, you know, create awareness, educate along the way. You know, don't do too much too soon. You know, we built this live demo and we built this big, you know, massive report with lots of slicers and data. Maybe not the best way to go about it. You know, this is a really busy page and no one really knows what it means. You know, kind of start simple. Make sure everyone's on board, make sure it makes sense, make sure the data owners agree that that's what they're supposed to be seeing. There's nothing more frustrating than someone building a report based on your data, and it's not, that's not right. They obviously didn't understand my data. So get the data owners involved, make sure they're bought in. The best implementations are driven from the top down. If your organization says, we're going to use this, like Josh came to us one day, said, Josh, we're going to use this for our stuff. All right, we better learn it. There's nothing more powerful than, a top down driven to drive some cultural change. Create a, I will say, like I said, not too much too soon. Create maybe a more controlled cadence of how you're going to implement new visuals, new reports. Make sure everybody's up to speed, caught up. Everyone agrees. Okay, what's going to happen is you're going to build something, they're going to like it, and they're going to ask for more. Or here comes Cam X over here is going to ask for something special. One off. We've seen that as well too. So kind of controlling the design cadence, if you will, will help. So just some lessons learned of it. Yeah.
It's not just it's a journey, not a destination. I know that's corny and all that other stuff, right? But you don't go hide with other EV nerds in a closet somewhere and create the ultimate dashboard that's going to solve every problem for 6 months, and then you roll it out, tired and weary. This is something that you make some quick connections, show some things, keep evolving, and understand that the capability for anybody to maintain. You got to have some expertise in this area, right? And it's constantly needs to be maintained, updated, and there can be a steady state, and we've gotten there, with our internal systems a lot of times. But it's something that you need to grow with an organization. It's going to take time, and you got to lead them through, I think, the process, right? And it can really be whatever you want it to be. And I know that can be daunting sometimes when you say the art of the possible here. It can really be anything, but I think starting pretty simple and evolving from there has been, a best practice for us. So last thing here, Scott, how can you use this for evil? Common misuses. Whoa, all right, we got a Gantt chart up here.
Okay, so Garrett, I guess we had had made one of these, but we have to sanitize it for you guys. Sorry, so he must have pulled it from somewhere from production. But you're seeing a screenshot. I talked about a phasing summary chart right out of Project Online. So all we had to do is code some milestones, code some phases. This is actually drill downable. So if you see overlap between phases, which I can clearly see in that second swim lane, you can drill down to the next level. It actually shows you the overlap. That's what Garrett's showing you here. So we built a way to roll it up into one swim lane, and then if you want to drill down into see the overlap, make sure the data makes sense. Why does my PDR activity go all the way out to CDR? I don't understand. Maybe there's something wrong in the schedule. It can really help shed light on some of the data in your schedule as well. Not unlike how Milestones Pro or One Pager would do the same thing. When you go to refresh and your milestones move all over the place, and you're like, oh, I didn't expect milestone B to fly off the page. Something happened. So something very similar. So I appreciate it, Garrett. Yeah, this is just a real quick example of the custom visual we actually had built.
And of course, it would have all the interactivity. So if you just wanted to see, by milestone or by phase or by program or by date, any way you slice it, right?
Yeah, and you'd click on that, and it would filter. You could see a subset of activities. So it's again fully interactive. So misuses to your last question there, Josh. We already talked because Eric asked the question, hey, could I use it for this? We get a lot of that, hey, what if I just used it for this? When it's exciting and, people are getting, bought in, and now all of a sudden they want to use it for everything. Maybe not, we use the old adage, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So it's not a cure-all. You're still going to have, you're still going to need smart analysts. This is not designed to replace people. It's designed to help them do their job better and provide insights and management to make decisions. It's not designed to replace people by any means, but it can help facilitate, how they process information, how they obtain and process and analyze information. As far as other misuses, I've seen bad charts that either exaggerate or, just because they had the wrong scale in there, and maybe they did it on purpose, maybe they didn't. but scale matters, right? So if you're trying to show a column chart and the scales are wildly different, it either exaggerates or lessens the impact of the story you're trying to tell. So understand, use the appropriate visual. Scale matters. Using the wrong chart matters. I don't use a pie chart when I need a column chart, that sort of thing. And some of those are obvious, but in just presentation best practices. But one other thing, and you touched on it real quick. We're not just a bunch of EV nerds going sitting and building something in a silo. There's some what I call developer bias. So when I'm building this, I have a way I like to look at things, and so I'm going to build it, to facilitate my brain. That may not be the best for the organization. So I'll automatically have some what I call developer bias, where I'm gonna steer you towards this visual or this metric or this report. Keep the whole organization involved. Like I said, the data owners in particular, make sure that, because you're reporting their data, make sure you understand the status of the data, the quality of the data. Make the data quality available to them, but not necessarily publish it to the world. Know your customers. I've seen, oh, I didn't mean to send my customer or give my customer access to that report. So that's, understand who your customers are, who your consumers of the data are. Create roles and groups and separate reports, even if you have to, to kind of control that. Yeah, some lessons learned, some misuses along the way.
Okay. Well, thanks. I'm sure everybody's mind is blown at this point. There's a lot to be had here, and the possibilities, I guess, here are endless. But it's seems to always be a place for this kind of thing, whether it's doing analysis or doing data validation or what have you. But our team definitely embraces it, and you can see how easy it can be to get going. The real magic comes with the long-term value and really understanding the data for which you're interacting with. And just like we're experts in program control information, we actually brought in the expert that understood the table structure for Jameis, our accounting system, and had them help us to build the Power BI. So I guess another lessons learned is, hey, don't just think that, oh, I read the Power BI for Dummies book and I'm ready to just plow in. You got to understand the data that you're dealing with, right? Otherwise you're picking around. And if you get involved and you try look at the number of tables in SAP or some large scale corporate tool, it's going to blow your mind. So finding the experts, being able to find out where that key data connection is, and then you only have to make it once, and boom, now you have a direct data feed that you can manage and control, and I think the possibilities are endless. It's exciting. So Barbara, I think that's the conclusion of our prepared information. If there's any other questions at the end, or you wanted to do anything else before the end of our scheduled time, we're ready for you.
Oh, okay. So somehow we were behind schedule, and miraculously we are now ahead of schedule. Okay.
ClearPlan.